What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix. I'm Ryan Coop here with your Week 9 preview, kicking things off with the quarterback position for this week. It's an early start to the week. The first game comes Tuesday between Edmonton and Ottawa, so we're going to need to get these previews done early. It's early Monday morning. I'm up getting these ready for you. So that you have all of the things you need to start setting your lineups before Tuesday's game. I'll have your other positional previews out throughout the day today, and a depth chart update for that game out late Monday night or Tuesday morning as well to get you all set for that one. And then we've got a game on Friday and two on Saturday, so I'll have depth chart updates out later in the week for those as well. But let's kick things off with talking about the quarterbacks for this week. A very intriguing week, I think, for quarterback play because there's a lot of teams that are a little bit up in the air of who's going to start, who's not, and what kind of performances we can expect to see. So let's take a look at the field here. There's not too many options among the projected starters that I love. Particularly, there's a lot I see benefits to, and then I also have some reservations with. So let's start. Let's just go top down here. Let's start with Vernon Adams Jr. I have him as a red light this week because to get the full 2.5 points per $1,000, you need 32.9 points out of him. Last week he did put up 23.1. He does have a couple games where he has had in that 20 range. He has 1 week of 31, but he's also had a couple weeks against Hamilton and BC of 11.2, and he's facing Hamilton again this week. I think the Ticats have rounded into form with a very good defense this year, and the price point is just way too high for me on Vernon Adams this week. I don't see any way he hits against this Ticats defense, that basically 33-point mark. I think even hitting over 26.3 is going to be tough for him. I could see him maybe getting to the 20-point range. He uses, if he can connect with his receivers, use his legs. But he has been throwing a couple turnovers in recent weeks. That is concerning. So I'm saying stay away from VA this week. I think the price point's too high to be worth your money, and you can spend it better elsewhere. Couple that I kind of like, I kind of don't. Yellow light. Cody Fajardo, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 30.5 is what you're looking for at over a $12,000 salary. He has had some very good weeks this year against basically anybody besides Winnipeg. Against BC in week number 1, 17.8 points, but other than that, his lowest, besides those games against the Bombers where his max was 8.5, his lowest in his other 4 games this year is 22.4 points. So you have a pretty high floor with Fajardo. I think the matchup with Calgary is also pretty good for him. The Stampeders do give a lot up in the passing game. So I do kind of like Fajardo as a higher priced option this week. I do have him as a cautionary tale just because that 30.5 is so hard to hit on any given week. Like we're talking, 300 yards passing is 12 points. You got to get a couple touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns in there is another 12. That puts you at 24 points right there. Then you got to maybe get in for a rushing touchdown. So I think it's possible, but I think it's a tall task. So I say cautionary on Fajardo. If you have room based on how the rest of your lineup shakes out and you're happy with the rest of your lineup, maybe he's a guy you can take a shot on this week to put up a big total. Michael Riley, I'm also cautionary on him. He comes in at $11,838. He has been, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the CFL this season. He's put up an average of 20.3 points in every game. Last week, 20.1 against the Riders, 23.6, 29.5, and 24 in his past 4 games. Those are very good fantasy numbers. And I think he has the potential to pick up some rushing yards, pick up quite a few passing yards against the Bombers. The only reason I'm cautionary is the Bombers are the best team in the league when it comes to playing against quarterbacks because teams do not throw touchdown passes against them, and they force a lot of turnovers as well. So I'm a little nervous about Riley against that Bombers defense. I think it's a great matchup, and I think he could have a really good day, but we've seen them shut down a lot of quarterbacks this year, including the aforementioned Cody Fajardo. So I say cautionary on Riley. Trevor Harris is such a wild case right now. Last week, after a game against Calgary in the Labor Day rematch, he starts practicing, then pulls himself from practice, then he gets put on the 6-game injured list. Taylor Cornelius gets the start, and now all of a sudden Trevor Harris is off the 6-game injured list, has been a full participant in practice the past 2 days, and we'll probably find out later on Monday he might be starting this week. So I'm cautious on Harris. First of all, this is assuming he starts. If he's not starting, don't put him in your lineup. I think that goes without saying. But $10,834. He faces an Ottawa team that's been, frankly, sorry Red Blacks fans, a disaster. And I think you would agree with me on that. They've given up 21.8 points a game to quarterbacks. So the matchup is really good there for Harris. The only reason I put him as a cautionary tale is because he hasn't connected for a ton of touchdowns this year, which makes hitting that point total difficult. He's thrown for a lot of yards. I also want to see how this injury does actually affect him. So I'm considering putting him in my lineup personally as well, but I do not think necessarily he hits that 27.1 point mark this week. I say stay away from Bo Levi Mitchell. I presume he's going to be the starter for the Stampeders again this week, although I advocate that I think Jake Mayer should get the start because he's performed much better this season. In his last 2 games since returning from injury, Bo has had 14.1 and 4.6 points on 4 games on the year, averaging just 8.7. Yes, the Riders have given up a lot of points to quarterbacks this year. I will argue that is padded by Sean Maguire putting up 5 rushing touchdowns against them in 2 weeks. Bo Levi Mitchell ain't getting you rushing touchdowns. Let's just say that. He needs 21.6 through the air, and you're not getting that this week, I don't think, from Bo Levi Mitchell. I hope he proves me wrong and bounces back, but things aren't looking too good with him right now. Zach Collaros is an interesting play at $8,017. He is one of the cheaper options, and he's put up close to full value, but hasn't nailed it on any week yet this year. Last game against Edmonton, 12.3 points. In his past, in those 2 games against the Riders before that, 14.9 and 19.1. He has not hit 20 on the year yet, but he's had a couple in that 18-19 range. So I think Collaros could hit you full value. I do like the play of a cheaper salary. The only thing is, much like I'm cautious on Riley against Winnipeg, I'm cautious on Collaros against BC because the Lions really haven't given up a ton of touchdowns either this year. They have a very underrated defense. They force a turnover almost every game. I think they have quite the streak going in that regard. So I'm not sure Collaros hits the full value just because it is a tough matchup. So I say cautious on Collaros. I do like David Watford if he starts again for the Ticats this week. He has a matchup with Montreal last week I think McLeod Bethel-Thompson had himself a solid day against for the Argos. You can pass against that Alouettes defense. They can give up some big plays. And last week, Watford put up decent value. 14 points was a solid day for him. He didn't hit full value, but he was close. And really, at a cheaper salary, the difference between being close and hitting it is a 3-point difference, which should not, hopefully, make or break your week. So I like Watford. I think he's getting more comfortable in that Ticats offense. He picks up some rushing plays there as well. He picks up some yardage through the air. So I do like him as a cheaper option for a starting quarterback this week if Mazzoli isn't ready to take over the starting reins quite yet. I've got 2 Ottawa receivers on the slide here with the quarterbacks because, frankly, I don't know which one's going to start. It seems like on Tuesday's game, Caleb Evans or Taron Christian are going to be making their first start for the Red Blacks. Dominic Davis is on the 6-game injured list. Matt Nichols also got himself injured last week. They're yellow lights to me because they're cheap plays. You need 12.5 points, which 200-yard passing game, it gets you 8 right there. Maybe you get 1 touchdown, you're at 12. So if they can manage that, which I know it seems like a tall task for Ottawa's offense this year, but they are also mobile quarterbacks, I'm led to believe, that can pick up some rushing yards. So it's tempting, not going to lie, to go with one of the cheaper options. And of course, only go with the one of these two that actually starts this week once the depth charts come out. But I can't greenlight them just because it's Ottawa and they're facing the Elks defense that I think has been one of the better teams defensively this year. So I would say be cautious on the Ottawa starting quarterback. And then taking a look at a couple of the other options, Jeremiah Masoli, if he is ready to go, I don't know I love that option. I want to see how he bounces back from injury first before locking him into a lineup. I think the price also at $9,527. I think 23.8 maybe in his first game back is a stretch for Masoli, who did struggle in his first few games before going down with injury. Again, I think Bo Levi Mitchell does start again for Calgary. I don't think Calgary and Dickinson's going to go away from Bo, especially with how much they're paying him. But if Jake Mayer does, for whatever reason, start this week, I like the play. I like what he's done this year. In all of his starts, he's had, 300-yard passing games. Last game around, he replaced Bo when Bo got pulled, and I think went a perfect 8 for 8 for something like 90 yards and a touchdown. Put up 13.5 points against the Ticats last time around. The Riders do give up occasionally, a big passing play that I think could pad the stats. They're prone to giving up big plays. If Jake Mayer starts, I like Jake Mayer to be able to put up a 12.1 or a 21-point performance against the Riders. I think it might be a bit of a stretch, but I could see him getting in that 17 range to at least give you 2 points per 1,000. Matt Nichols, if he is healthy and ready to go, look, that average speaks for itself. 3.6 points in 5 starts this year. Don't go with Matt Nichols as your quarterback this week at $5,620. Sean McGuire, I put him in there in case anybody's thinking about it. He did have 5 rushing touchdowns in 2 games against the Riders, but then I don't think he got one in the last game around for the Bombers. He got one in that game. You need 2 rushing touchdowns basically to get 12 points out of him, and even then he's just barely hitting the value. There's a couple other starting quarterbacks potentially this week at cheap prices or much better plays than Sean McGuire. And one of those, if he does start and Trevor Harris is not ready to go, I love Taylor Cornelius as a $5,000 option against the Red Blacks this week. Last game against the Bombers, he did put up just 6 points in that one. I thought he had some good throws. He showed he has a heck of an arm. They only referenced it on the broadcast like 95 times. He had a good arm, and he showed that, he can complete some of those passes with a little bit of zip on them. And if he can connect those with his receivers, he has potential. He has a good matchup with the Red Blacks this week. He had another week off to review some game film from that first start against Winnipeg. Yeah, if he starts this week, I think Taylor Cornelius is who I'm looking at as putting in my lineup. You can't go wrong too bad with a $5,000 salary. If you don't get 12.5 points, even if you get 6 or 7, that's only 5 points back from getting on track to get your 100-point week. So those are the options I'm looking at quarterback for week number 9. Again, a couple of interesting scenarios with who starts for Edmonton, who starts for Ottawa, heck, who starts for Hamilton, and, I think, again, it will be Bo, but I want Jake Mayer to start for Calgary. I wish we could see it, and maybe we will, but probably not. So I do like the cheaper plays this week if they are in the lineup. Watford, Jake Mayer, Taylor Cornelius, and then kind of in the middle on a lot of them, but staying away from VA, Vernon Adams Jr., and Bo Levi Mitchell for week number 9. Those are your quarterback options. Stay tuned. The running backs, I'll have that one out next, and then wide receivers and defense, and a depth chart update for the Elks and the Red Blacks out later today on Monday as well. And then on Thursday, a depth chart update for Winnipeg and BC on Friday. And then Friday, I'll have a depth chart update out for the 2 games on Saturday. So do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't. If you have any fantasy questions, put them in the comments section. Tweet them at me, at CooperTrooper42 on Twitter. It starts with a K. The link to it's in the video description. If you have any fantasy questions, I just mentioned that. You can send them to me there. Or if you just want to talk about how you did in fantasy the last week. I love talking CFL Fantasy or CFL in general with anyone and everyone. And if you want to play CFL Fantasy alongside myself and other viewers, there's a link in the description as well to our league on the official CFL Fantasy site. You can play alongside myself and others this week and every week throughout the 2021 CFL season. As always, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.